episode 3 of Motivated La Season 3. Yo, so last I just went back to the last week.
It's okay, it happens, Ashraf.
Okay.
It's fine, it's all good. How you feeling?
So yeah, I'm feeling good. So yeah, you heard recently this Sajat, this Malaysian transgender,
Right.
represent she got caught in Bangkok recently. So
The
you know,
places of all amazing,
So if-
transgendered and
I was thinking if the cops actually put that effort to catch like real criminals here in Malaysia, how better would that be, right?
Hey, Ashraf, you I don't
You can actually say that, right?
I can. I'm from Klang. They can't catch me.
Yeah,
You can catch-
because Klang is like, number one criminal in
Yeah.
Southeast Asia. Have you guys heard of that? Have you, I mean, like, are you seriously proud of that?
Oh my god. You know why I'm proud? I'm
Why?
proud because I'm a stand-up comic and I'm from Klang and I can make a lot of jokes. Like there's like 10 jokes I wrote that night when that news came out. So like I'm so proud, guys. Oh my god.
So you're just proud because you actually got the material for your stand-up comedy and nothing other than that. Yo, messed up, man!
But apart from that, let's talk about freedom of speech. Of course I can say those stuff. Of course I can, right?
Right. Are you sure about that? Because our next guest who's going to come in, his name is Raqib. So he is a stand-up comedian in Malaysia, and also he has been working with the media industry for quite some time back then. He knows a lot of insights and whatnot. So maybe it's a good thing for us to learn and also to educate ourselves on what is right and wrong and what is wrong with the whole freedom of speech in Malaysia itself. So let's welcome Raqib! Alright guys, welcome to Motivated La. Thank you so much to Raqib for joining us today and actually really sharing about more on freedom of speech. Thank you. How do you feel about being here?
I'm quite motivated lah.
Really, yeah. You see, that is really good. That's the kind of spirit that we want our guests to come in here. But I hope towards the end you will have a little bit more upbeat of a motivated lah instead of motivated lah.
No, that's just how I sound. I'm
Really?
very steady. I'm very steady.
Raqib is constantly on ASMR mode lah.
That's
ASMR
right. No,
mode.
I have been told specifically by like the organizer of like the Georgetown Literary Festival that
Right.
he wants me to recite Shakespeare in public because he likes the fruitiness of my voice.
The fruitiness. Wow, that's a very nice way of describing a person's voice.
I have no idea what that means, and frankly, I feel a bit
guess.
violated. But I go along with it, lah.
Anyways, thank you for really freeing up your time to be with us. Also, I understand that you've been in the media for quite some time. Do you want to tell us like a little bit an insight about your life in the media industry back then?
Sure. So I started in 2015, October 5th, I believe was my first day.
Okay.
I just needed a reason to leave Penang.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. And
Right.
I couldn't really stay in Penang anymore. I was stagnating. I didn't have any direction in life. A bunch of stuff happened that, I just couldn't like deal with anymore. So I thought to myself, new environment, new change of pace. And a friend who I knew from uni said that
Right.
we're looking for sub-editors for the main section of the Star newspaper. It's a bit of a tough gig. You work from 4 p.m. to midnight. And it's very detail-oriented work. It's high tension.
Right.
Deadlines can come fast. The workload is not even. You go into work and nothing happens for an hour or 2 hours, and then suddenly all the work shows up at the last minute, and then you're just struggling constantly.
Right. Wait,
to
what,
keep up
what was
with the
your
time.
specific job position? What was it?
So I was a sub-editor
Okay.
for the main
alright.
section of the print edition of the Star newspaper.
Okay, alright.
And that job basically entails checking for things like house style, which is the specific style of grammar, punctuation, spelling, etc., that we
Right.
use in the newspaper, in any publication really, to keep consistent styling.
Right.
And also to do fact checking, to make sure certain things that would be, politically incorrect or controversial gets taken out.
Right.
Because as much as freedom of speech was seen as like the ideal bastion of the press, realistically there's just certain things that you can't put in, whether it's for political reasons.
Right. So what were like
Some of the things that you were not allowed based on the protocol to put into like newspaper or publication.
I mean, look, some of this stuff, if I told you, I'd literally have to kill you. But
Kill me
There-
now!
there's certain things that, certain controversial pieces of news involving politics that if you were put in,
Ah,
you get a
okay.
call from the Prime Minister's department. The Prime Minister's
wow.
office would call up the editor-in-chief and say, take it out. And
Right.
the newspaper is majority owned by an alliance political party. They own most of the shares.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to toe the line with regards to what the government allows you to say. There are certain elements as well as per, never talk about suicide out in the open, always hint at it, and then always put
Okay.
like the befriender's number at the end because you don't want to trigger people. You got to be careful about choosing pictures because some of them might be graphic or violent. You don't want to implicate certain organizations or businesses with catastrophes or politically contentious activities, or
Like
just
a
even
riot
or,
and sort? Is that what you
not even. We're talking about how like there was this one news report of somebody's Lamborghini getting caught on fire in Penang.
Okay.
And I was reprimanded for naming the hotel where it happened.
Oh.
Yeah, because
What?
they don't want, the hotel doesn't want to be associated with
That,
the
that-
possibility of your $1 million car turning into a bonfire lah. Another example was a report about Rohingya refugees coming on shore and then getting caught. And it happened not that far away from, yet again, it's a hotel. And I
Right.
thought I was leaving that detail in as a basic geographic reference. But again, my boss said, take it out. Because we don't want this hotel suing us or whatever. So there are certain legal and economic considerations to take when you're editing a newspaper, when you're editing a story, because at the end of the day, the newspaper makes its money through advertising, and you don't want to
Right.
piss off a potential customer for your advertisements.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Let's like deviate a bit from the newspaper
Which is-
kind of
yeah,
perspective,
Yes.
lah. And
Yeah.
from like observations recently, people have been speaking up, but not through like formal forms of media lah, like in the internet, social media mostly. And
Right.
there were a few names that are like like crazy protesters like Fahmi Reza, for instance. So yeah, and he has a large following. So which he is
Yeah.
what for me, my point of view, is what an influencer should be lah. Like influencer, that's what influencer
Right.
should be. So yeah, and for me, since this pandemic came out, I feel like there's a bit more of how to say, people realization about issues, and they need to speak up. The how to say they know that they have to speak up, they should speak up and all that. So recently, like a lot of things have happened, like Fami, even satire, and for instance our comedy scene itself, like
Yeah.
you can't see the raw form of comedy on
Right.
like mainstream media. Let's say mainstream media, you can't say the things you say in the comedy club, correct? Like
Yeah.
Raqib
Yeah,
would
yeah.
agree lah. So like what's your opinion, like what is it, what direction should we go to, and are we in the right direction, like in terms of freedom of speech, and what are the things we should speak up against or speak up of? So what do you think the things are, like we've been having this conversation just now about freedom of speech is there, it's a good thing, but some people misuse freedom of speech, like to promote hate, to promote
Right.
to promote bad stuff, racism and all that stuff.
Yes, that's
So yeah, how do we counter, like freedom of speech is good, but then how do we counter those who like misuse freedom of speech? What would we say?
So the great irony about freedom of speech is that while most people would think that the liability of freedom of speech is that it can be abused,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it also means that in order to protect freedom of speech, you have to use freedom of speech.
Yes.
Because freedom of speech is the only thing that will enable you to protect it. So a lot of people can go online and say all sorts of, malicious, seditious things. Okay. Recently, there was a report on a badminton player who was called racial epithets online.
Yes. Yeah, I've
Yes.
seen that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, you saw that.
horrible. Yeah.
That was horrible.
Right.
But the reason why we know about it is because a goddamn Facebook mob came together to tell this person off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you have this one person abusing his freedom of speech by saying this. He's- But then you also have a whole bunch of other people using their freedom of speech to call him out on his bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
So in order to protect freedom of speech, in order to protect people from the abuses of freedom of speech, the solution isn't less freedom of speech, it's even more
Even
freedom
more,
of speech.
yes.
Right.
Because you need to empower voices that speak the truth
Right.
against people who use it to speak, hate or falsehood.
Right. Right.
And it is an ongoing battle, and it is a continuous process. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Freedom of speech isn't a thing, it is an action. It is not a noun, it is a verb. It isn't a thing that you have and can hold. It is a thing that you must do and keep doing
Right.
in order for it to stay the way it is. And it is an unstable and highly dynamic and a process, and one that is in constant flux. And for people in power, stability is such an important thing to hold that entrusting the population, entrusting people with freedom of speech can feel like a very, very scary thing.
That's true.
Because if it
Yeah.
gets out of control, then you have Donald Trump in office for 4 years,
Yeah.
right?
True.
that's it.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Trump just pretty much brings out a lot of racists out there in America.
Yes.
And I'm sure, everywhere around the whole world, because Trump
I think-
at one point, was very
And it's not
influential
just
around
him.
the world. Yeah.
It's not just Donald Trump. It's Javier Bolsonaro in Brazil. It's Duterte in the Philippines. It's all
Hitler.
of these, Hitler, all of these people,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And we don't want to have a repeat of this again.
Correct.
But the truth of the matter is you, apart from simply having to accept the bad with the good, you also need to be aware that should these things happen,
Right.
that you will still have the tools to speak truth to power,
Yeah.
right?
And,
And that is, when we talk about speaking truth to power, this is something Ashraf and I hold quite dear as comedians, because the whole point of comedy is that it is ultimately, like for the freedom of speech, morally neutral. You can use it for good and you can use it for evil. But it is an incredibly powerful tool for speaking truth to power.
right.
That's why Fahmi Reza turns Najib into a clown epithet, effigy, and that's why
Yes.
whenever we have a good grasp of a particular topic, we make
Right.
political jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah.
We make racist jokes sometimes not because we believe in the stereotypes, but we want to exaggerate the absurdity of racism to such a point that people laugh at how stupid racism is.
Yes.
Right.
That's why we make racist jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We
very
make jokes about
interesting,
race.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah.
interesting you brought that up because a lot of people don't get comedians and how they actually talk about race and like why are you stereotyping, why are you, influencing people to think about it in that way. But it's good that you said it because it's more of like really just exaggerating the absurdities that what
Yeah.
people is saying, and it's the same thing like what Fahmi is actually doing. He's
Yes.
pretty much exaggerating through a graphic satire of it.
Yes.
But the worst part of it all, he gets called in by the police, and it's what are we even doing here? Like
Yeah.
why can't he has his voice? And it's not
Yeah.
like he's hurting anybody. If it's a joke,
Yeah.
laugh, right? But
Yeah.
if it's not, then you just move on and do a better job at it, and stop being a clown of the country. It's the same thing that goes with Namwi. I'm sure everybody knows
Sure,
Namwi.
sure.
Yeah.
Is this director, and he makes a lot of political satire and truth also in the entertainment scene. Recently he had a film out that called this was last year, I think. It was called Barbie, right?
Yes.
So the name was just very right in your face, and
Yeah.
that movie, of course, got a lot of hate from
Yeah.
the not from the public, but from
Politicians.
mainly from the
Politicians.
politicians and from
Yeah.
and because he got banned and all that. I'm not too sure what the story is. He got nominated for a few awards in Taiwan, in Bangkok, even so much so in Berlin. And it's very
Yeah.
very sad to see that Malaysia, we want to speak the truth. People are actually, he's using his voice as an influencer
Yeah.
to go out there and tell people like, hey, you know what, we need to instill unity and importance of it,
Yeah.
right? Like, what do you think of like these issues that the governments are doing, like with the police getting involved with people just using their freedom of speech? What do you think about that? Because to me, obviously I don't like it because
Right.
it's just filtering out what Malaysia is all about.
Yeah.
So, I got a lot to say about this because we talk and we make fun about America a lot and how crazy its political situation is.
Right.
But in uni, I had this blind lecturer who did American history with me, American literature, right?
Okay. Alright.
And the same thing. If you're learning history, you also learn. If you're learning literature, you're also learning history, lah. Because you can't do one without the other.
Yep.
Right, that's true.
And he told us that the reason why you're learning American history as part of your English major is because there are certain historical and political elements of America that you will see are very closely paralleled in Malaysia.
Right.
And one of these things is the usage of a wedge issue in order to gain political support. So the idea is to make a big deal out of a minor issue in order to raise controversy. Now this splits the population in two, which is why it's called a wedge issue. It splits the population in two. And if you gamble on this just right as a politician, what will happen is that the bigger chunk that splits apart between between the two people against these issues will be the one that supports you.
Right.
That's why you have people people making a big deal out of Nameway's thing. If they said nothing,
Right.
right, no one would have cared about Nameway's movie. They would not have
Right.
seen it as controversial. They would have
Right.
bought tickets, seen it, and made judgments for themselves.
Right.
But because it's so socially contentious, because the movie is about racism, because it has this somewhat, taboo title, it is ripe political material
Yeah.
for a wedge issue tactic.
Right.
And that is essentially what is happening. It's a wedge issue. There is no sincere belief. amongst these politicians, as far as I can tell, about whether this is damaging or not. Maybe some of them actually do believe that it's somehow, like offensive or whatnot.
Right.
Immaterial, irrelevant.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's political fodder for them, and they can get support from making a big deal out of nothing,
Yeah.
right? And this happens in America all the time,
Right.
and we do it to a lesser extent, but not by much. Like we do this
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Another issue, but going back to the whole notion of, governments and freedom of speech,
Right.
comedy is sometimes an interesting sort of like fly on the wall with regards to what happens. So I can give you 2 examples of this.
Okay.
Number one, I was giving a talk to a Pucha Kucha sort of event, right? So it's this event where you got 20 seconds to talk on 20 slides. It's very tightly timed. I could barely do it, right? So I gave a talk about comedy. And I talked about how the comedian is basically the only person in the court of a king that is allowed to speak the truth without getting executed. Because he can make the truth palatable,
Yes.
right?
True.
And I drew a reference to Batman because the reason why the Joker is the most formidable opponent to Batman is because the real enemy is Gotham itself. It's not Joker. It's Gotham itself is toxic,
Right. Yeah.
right? All the Joker does is present to you the awful truth about what
Right.
Gotham is really about.
Right.
And in the court of Gotham, the clown gets to say the truth. Not the knight, not the Dark Knight. The clown gets to say the truth. And I drew a parallel to this with Fahmi Reza's Najib clown
Clown
thing, right? Because when you look at the powers that be that you entrusted to run the country, and and everything that comes out of it seems absurd and insane. All you can do is laugh. It's your only
Yeah.
coping mechanism.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I told people that this is comedy is, it starts out as a coping mechanism for stressful times, and then it becomes a tool to point out the elephant in the room, right? Like, this is a thing that exists, and y'all should be paying attention to this shit right here,
Yep.
right? Because, and here's the important part, when you are the elephant in the room, it's there to show people that you exist and that you matter. There's a reason why so many comedians are like mixed race, racial minorities, come from harsh backgrounds, because we need to tell the world that we matter, and in this social and political landscape, we don't. Not really. We're forced to either put ourselves in a particular box, or we are at the mercy of powers beyond our control. Like, a lot of comedians, you'll notice, are Indian. And these very same people run the risk of dying in lockup. And all we can do is make jokes about it,
Yeah.
right? And as I'm finishing this story, and Fahmi Reza's picture is on the display board, who is not in the audience but Fahmi Reza himself?
Yeah.
And as I am, and he's just nodding and smiling at my talk. So as I am walking back into the audience, we lock eyes and he gives me a fist bump. And it's like one of the greatest moments of my life.
Aw, that's so nice.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
is.
best.
Oh, that's when you know you're doing the right thing, lah.
Yeah.
When Fahmi Reza gives you a fist bump.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
then, second thing, this is long before Tan Sri Muhyiddin became Prime Minister. This was when he got sacked by Najib over the 1MDB issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the first things he did to just throw some stress off after he got sacked from his job is show up at the crack house.
Oh.
In, you don't know this one? You
I
know?
didn't know. I just came into the scene. I didn't know.
One day on a Wednesday on a bloody open mic, Muhyiddin was in the front row, and no one had.
God.
Yeah, no one had any non-political jokes, so we just started doing the political jokes that everybody had prepared. I wasn't there, but I was told the story, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And And then at the end, and then he was laughing. He was enjoying himself quite a bit from all of these political jokes. And Rizal Van Giesel, the owner of the club, then came on stage to do some housekeeping, and he said, "Well, Tan Sri, we're glad that you're here. Please don't be offended by anything we say. We're just trying to make jokes. We're just trying to make people laugh. I hope that you walk away from this with a good impression about what we do." And apparently, what he said was, "Don't worry about making jokes about politics. Don't worry about making jokes. I've been working with clowns for years."
Oh shit.
Little does he know that he is also the clown. But anyways, continue.
He didn't know this was gonna happen to him, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a thing that happens with like ordinary people who get into power. You
Yeah.
don't think you're gonna be the bad guy.
When you
Right,
end up.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you either
Yeah.
die a hero or you live long enough to be the villain.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Mahadi, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
You live for a very long time, huh?
Apa nama?
Apa nama? Apa tu? Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, the like what we were talking about is like the bravery. You have to have that bravery, like that small fire in you, to actually speak
Right.
out, But
Correct.
here in Malaysia, that what I realized after coming out of the cave that is called university, when I came out into the
Yeah,
real
yeah.
world, I realized there was. I was taught in university that freedom of speech, blah blah blah. You have to fight and all that shit. But then when you come out, when I came out, I realized there was actually a glass ceiling on the freedom of speech here in Malaysia.
Yeah.
There's a glass. You can see the issue. You can see the issue.
Yeah.
It's clear to you, but then you can't reach it. You can't actually,
Right.
you can't actually talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can say this, but for instance, the royals lah, you
Yeah.
can't say anything, and that's why probably the Fahmi Reza, this year or last year lah, this year lah, he really became like known for that dengki ke issue, and that
Yes.
issue was really big because of it was about a royal lah. So yeah, like you see how you think you can actually you go out there, go out of the norm, talk against people, but then you realize
Right.
there's actually a glass ceiling. You can't actually go above
Right, that's
a
true.
certain issue. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, that's,
So-
yeah.
That's for me. That's kind of a weird. I have mixed feelings about that, honestly,
Right.
because it's a bit of a Marie Antoinette sort of situation where a queen who's sort of like insulated from, what's happening in society for all of the social work that the royal families sometimes do. You can get a little bit sort of like insulated, not from the suffering of people. You can see that firsthand with the social work that you do. But from the visceral sense of dissatisfaction and rage people feel over how badly things have become.
True.
And I think in that situation, the queen said that. She said Denkika because it's like at the end of the day, she doesn't actually have any power, any executive power to make the sound decisions the country needed to heal,
Yeah, true.
right? She got the vaccine because she's in a position of wealth and privilege.
Yeah, true.
And now people are going after her for having wealth and privilege and getting the vaccine first. If I was her, I would have, and I hate to say this, but I would have probably said the same thing because it's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I don't have any power
Right.
anyway. Like, you can hate me all you want, but the enemy isn't me,
Yeah, true.
Right,
true.
right, correct. Yeah.
And if Her Majesty had the presence of mind in that moment, and I'm sure very few of us do, to actually say that, then I think we would have all understood, right? That the problem isn't individuals, the system is broken.
Yeah, the
The
system.
whole system is broken. You can have the best statesman this country can produce. and put them
Yeah.
into positions of power, the system will corrupt them in a week.
Yeah.
In a week. I have seen good politicians have forced to do terrible things because the system won't allow them to be good people.
True.
Right.
Right. So with regards to free speech, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, unless we need free speech in order to speak truth to power, not against individuals, as tempting as that is. Because even Hassan Minaj said the same thing in The Daily Show.
Yeah.
We can be sarcastic all we want about how dumb we think people in power are. But at the
Right,
end of the day, that doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
Correct.
Bloody Jon Stewart went on a reunion show of The Daily Show and said, this show has affected no change whatsoever.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It has been cathartic, it has been good for people, and God bless Jon Stewart. He's done some great work, particularly with first responders for 9/11 and whatnot. But
Yes. Yeah. That was
at the
great.
end of the day, attacking individuals isn't really going to do anything. You need to speak truth to power vis-a-vis the system as a whole.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in Malaysia, it is very difficult to speak truth to power because power is a personal investment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember when I said that Malaysian politics sometimes parallels American politics really closely?
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened in America was, and this is a very broad generalization, I'm going super basic here, that initially there was a sense of camaraderie between poor black people and poor white people against rich landowners with regards to workers' rights, workers' protections, all of this,
Right.
safety stuff.
Right.
Okay. And slavery was a part of that, right? But what happens is, and this is very common in all countries, propaganda began to spread from both the politicians and business owners about how ethnic minorities are there to threaten working class white people, and it is up to powerful rich white people to protect poor white people from non-white people. So before, there used to be a multi-ethnic coalition of support for the rights of ordinary Americans. Then you got the wedge issues to split them apart, and then now you can oppress non-white people with the support of poor white people, even though they're being screwed over by rich white people. This is, now you take out the word white people and replace it with Malay people, and it's exactly the same thing.
Right.
Exactly.
Boom. Right
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Right. We basically had a Republican Party for the past 60 years. Basically.
Basically.
Yeah.
So, what does that have to do with free speech? You can't talk
Right.
about the system because poor
Right.
people who are
Right.
who feel like the system
Right.
represents them as people, whether it benefits them or not, I will feel attacked if you call out the system.
Yeah.
So, and we talk a lot about how the politics of this country is incredibly toxic and incredibly discriminatory, right? But then you'll have people in the comments go, "What about DAP lah? What about these people lah?" The whataboutism start coming out, right?
Right. Right.
So how do you solve that? You got to tell people who would say these things, the fellas in power don't give a shit about you, bro.
Yeah.
You can start blaming the other side all you want, but all these other people, right, who benefit from you making an enemy out of the other person, at the end of the day, you don't see any of the profit that they make from your support.
Yeah.
And you need to recognize that.
Yeah.
And
True.
as hard as it is, it means that you have to join forces with people who you've been told your entire life you're supposed to hate.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult thing to do. And us also, as middle class English speaking fellas in our comfortable urban environments, okay, we talk amongst ourselves in English about all these very pertinent issues with politics and free speech and whatnot. But the people who really need to hear this are in the heartland.
Yeah.
We joke about Kelantan all the time and all of the heinous shit we talks about, but the child marriages lah and the Talibanization of Islam in Malaysia,
Yeah.
right? How past is this toxic element in Malaysian politics?
Yeah.
Because once it's united with UMNO, it becomes sort of like this toxic combination of religion and politics that you
Yeah.
see around the world that's being really bad for people.
True.
Right. But is anybody going around telling the Kelantanese about 1MDB? Is anybody going around telling people in Pasir Mas about all of Rosma's handbags? When you go to Teluk Kumba and Penang and that farm and that fisherman who's about to lose his job because land reclamation by the state government is going to happen, and he needed that $300 Najib was giving him to make ends meet, right? Are you going to give him $300 and then tell him not only is your life going to be better because of the decisions enlightened people are going to make, but you should also not take the $300 because the people who gave you those $300 got it by screwing over other people? Are you going to go out into those areas and tell them that? Freedom of speech is all well and good.
Yeah.
But I think what we really need to do is distribute speech to the masses.
Yeah.
And we got to do it in multiple languages, and we got to do it in all different kinds of environments, and we can't discriminate
True.
about the kind of people we think want to hear this.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is dangerous and risky, and a lot of people don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But the reason why some people might not want to hear it is because they think it's coming from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
Like, we need to recognize our own privilege when we
True.
do freedom of speech,
That's true.
because they're looking at us like, oh, these well-off pricks from KL talking about revolution. They don't realize what it's like to live off 300 ringgit a month
Yeah.
because you're a fisherman in Batu Fringhi or whatever, right? You need to you need to assure these people that you need to give them the tools to do free speech as well,
Yeah.
That's true.
even if you may not agree with their point of view.
Right. It's the point of view that really matters at the end. Like how you were mentioning about the story on the fishermen getting 300 ringgit, but little did they know that there are so much of story behind it and how they were getting the money and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's very important, like how you said, you have to distribute freedom of speech to the masses. Yes,
Yeah.
city people, we are very well equipped with our information and our source, right?
Yeah.
We're very good in that. But people who are less fortunate in terms of technology and finding for resources and news, they are the one that's gonna suffer at the end day, because they do
Right.
not know the story that's coming about. So before we conclude, I just wanted to know what are you hoping for more in terms of the freedom of speech in Malaysia here? Probably we'll start with Ashraf first, and then we'll go all around. So what are you hoping for, Ashraf, when it comes to freedom of speech?
Yeah. My stance is the same as I would say it's same as Raqib, and I learned something today that I should
We learn
realize.
something every day.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yay. So yeah, basically, we the people who live in the city and all that, we have to realize how much privileged we are compared to those who are in those places, the petani, the fishermen, the farmers, and all those peoples in the suburbs pula. The kawasan pedalaman and all that. I forgot the English word. So
Pendalaman.
pedalaman. So yeah, so what I can conclude from today's topic is freedom of speech is all important, but also the distribution of information that that goes with that freedom of speech. The topics that are spoken out on freedom of speech, because it's true, those people, we can say apa lah tadi cakap English apa semua kan, but then they are not how to say, they are not exposed to that kind of culture, you know. They are living there, everybody speaks Malay, or in estates everybody speaks Tamil, stuff like that. So you know, we can do all we want, you know, we can talk all we want, but then at the end of the day, we have to, you know, we have to bring this information, like it or not, straight to those people who are affected the most, you know. So so my conclusion would be like, freedom of speech should be spoken in all languages, especially here in Malaysia where it's multicultural and
Yes,
so on.
we should.
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
people
that's
would understand. You can go to a petani in Kedah and then start like, bro, freedom of speech. They will apa tu?
Yeah, they won't know.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
But you want to give them the opportunity to say what they want without fear.
Yeah, true.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. That's true.
Yeah, people got to tell them you can say your mind,
Right.
bro. You don't have to keep quiet.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And when they do say it, you got to get it out there, because where I come from in Penang, people have protested, people have gotten the word out, and then the interest fizzles out.
Right.
True.
So, you know, as I said before, freedom of speech is not a thing you have; it's a thing you do.
You do.
You have to keep doing it.
That's true. I think in terms of freedom of speech, so people need to be educated, because they can say all they want, because in their thinking, okay, being racist or being calling a certain race, you know, like in a very discriminatory way, you know, for them it's, yes, this is the right thing for me to say, you know, just like for example the badminton player and whatnot. So I think the first thing when it comes to freedom of speech is the fact that people need to be educated on what is right and what is wrong, what is right and wrong with the technology, and also with the news that people are getting and the source of it, you know, and how they are processing it and whatnot. So I think that for me, I hope that everybody, you know, like me, Ashraf and Raqib, I'm sure for you guys as well, we are also learning every day. We are educating ourselves on the issues that are pertaining in Malaysia, and I think that's where we need to start first, educating ourselves, and then that's where freedom of speech hopefully will come along, and it will, you know, pretty much unite our Malaysians all together. Yeah. But
it's it's like that song lah. You gotta be bold. You gotta be brave. You gotta be wiser.
Yes.
You gotta be strong. You gotta be tough. You gotta be together. You gotta. That song has been played on Radio 4, whatever, for as long as I can remember, and I've always taken it for granted. But I think at my age now, I think these are words that we should probably take to heart. Freedom of speech isn't just for you and me, for the three of us here. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
All ethnicities, all socioeconomic statuses, all geographies.
And I think
I
you
think-
just said it very
Yes.
well. And
Just concluded.
yes, thank you so much, Raqib, for really sharing your knowledge and on what you feel about freedom of speech, because I think me and Ashraf, we really learn a lot. I think we always learn a lot from each other. Do you feel motivated lah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Listening up on our topic on freedom of speech, and please be kind to one another and stay
Motivated lah.
Nice. I'll edit that.
Thank you.
I'll edit.
Yeah.
Make it sync.
Okay.
Oh, it's okay. If it doesn't sing, it's fine. You know,
It's fine.
because
It's content.
we are one
Yeah.
Malaysia. Yeah, it's content.